In this video, we'll try and understand how to measure the service quality. In an earlier video, we had understood what service quality is all about and we had defined service quality. In this video, we'll learn about how to go about measuring that service quality. There are two ways that you can measure service quality. One is a soft measure and one is a hard measure. The soft standard of measurement is something that cannot be easily observed and that are typically gathered only by talking to customers. The very common thing is customer feedback, where we actually take up a primary tool analysis, always use the questionnaire, and we go with them, we take a questionnaire, or we just talk to them. The only way we can get through a feedback, we'll be able to understand what the customer really wants, what the customer has, what perceptions that the customer has, what beliefs, everything can be understood and what levels of satisfaction, what drives satisfaction for the customer, what drives dissatisfaction for the customer. All of that can be measured only, measured or rather we can be known only by able to being spoken to the customer. And we had also looked at something called as a serve call scale, an entire scale on 5 generic dimensions of service quality. That is also a measure of soft standard. Now, hard standards, on the other hand, are typically process activities and outcomes that can be counted, timed, or measured. Now, what do I mean by that? There are a lot of examples given down there in different service organizations. In a restaurant, let's say how many orders were filled correctly. The time required to complete a specific task. This is very generic, applies to any service organization. How many minutes customers had to wait in line at a particular stage in the service delivery. How, when I say wait in line, it could be anything. It could be in the airline service, it could be in the banking service, it could be the governmental service, it could be even in your restaurant service. How many minutes, how many trains arrived late? How many bags were lost? The temperature of a particular food item. How many telephone calls were dropped while customers were on hold? Or how many patients made a complete recovery following a specific type of surgery? Counts, numbers, which can be quantified are nothing but hard standards. Each of this, as far as soft standards as well as hard standards are concerned, we'll look at them in detail in the coming slides. We look at the first type in terms of soft standards is customer feedback. Very common. We all understand by the term itself what is customer feedback, but what does customer feedback really try and do? The three primary objectives. One is basically the assessment and benchmarking of service. Benchmarking, the word itself is the word basically means that we are trying to set a standard against which we are trying to measure the output. When I say measure a particular item, I will have a benchmark against which I measure it. So the objective is nothing but how satisfied are your customers? To answer that question, right, I can be basically measuring the firm, the service organization against my competitor. I can measure against my previous year, previous month, previous quarter, or I can also measure it against other units, whether other units are like branches, teams, service, products. The entire idea, whether I measure it against competitors or previous year or basically against units, benchmarking, by trying to benchmark like this, I'm able to get a kind of assessment on my service quality, whether it is matching my customer satisfaction levels, and I'll be able to also understand my performance of the services. Now, why do we do comparison against other units? Competitors is understandable. Previous year is understandable because I want to improve year by year. My performance has to improve. Measuring against competitors is also fine because I want to improve better than the competitor. But why do you want to measure against your other units, against your other branch, against your own other teams, against other service products, against other similar kind of players that you have within your organization? Is basically to motivate managers and your employees, that is your service staff, to improve their own performance, especially when the results are linked to compensation. So performance linked compensation is what generally is a term that is driven in service organization, because it's all purely based on how you can deliver. The other two objectives are customer driven. You see, this was more of a standard set, more from a firm perspective. You have an assessment, you have a benchmark, and you assess based on that. And then you can also have from a customer side, which is customer driven learning and improvement, or creating a customer oriented service culture, overall organizational culture based on the customer. For the first one, what makes our customer happy or unhappy? What we are trying, basically, we are trying to do a sort. We are trying to do a sort within the company, but looking at the customer perspective. What are the strengths we want to cement? What are the weaknesses we need to improve on? More specific information we try to collect on our process, on the product, about the firm service improvement efforts, only be able to get all of that if we are able to understand what makes customer happy. So it's a form of customer feedback, but more from a customer driven learning and improving our service processes. We can change the entire company culture. That is, the entire objective is you have to be able to be the voice of the customer. Bring it into the organization. It has to flow within the entire, it has to permeate within the entire organization. Focusing the organization on customer needs and customer satisfaction, and rallying the entire organization towards a service quality culture. It also includes fostering a culture of continuous improvement and change. So what are the customer feedback collection tools? Some of the tools, some are known, which you might have seen, you might have come across. One thing which is generally used is in total market survey. Total market survey or an annual survey or transactional surveys are generally carried out, which typically measure your satisfaction with all major customer service processes and products. This is done because it's a total market survey. It's not done on a very regular basis. It's done like on a scheduled basis whenever, like once in a year. It's because you're going to cover the entire market. Generally covered by large organizations. It's something which is really done, and it can be done by unit by unit, if because it has to be split by unit, and they generally do this kind of a survey. Transactional surveys are at a customer point of sale. You must have seen that screen there, which is something which you see the image right up there. Please rate, and this is something you'll see in certain malls. If I'm not mistaken, you'll see it in more supermarket. If you at the point of transaction, you will see those buttons, and more often than not, we tend to just press on the happy button and we just get out. But if you're really not happy, then you'll press on the this app. Only, I mean, dissatisfied. Very few people are very, what do you say, honest with their reviews. But the idea is, at the point of transaction, how did you feel about your entire uh, experience when you have taken the service? So at the end of the, if McDonald's will have it, you have taken the restaurant service at the end before you leave, you have this particular thing here where you can just type in, key in your attributes, key in your response, and they'll basically be able to collate all of it and understand what the customer feels at the transaction point. Service feedback cards, online and mobile messages, something which is very much used these days. Service feedback cards are like a form you get. You get a form. Sometimes you see this in restaurants. Before you leave, they'll give you a form. They'll ask you please to tick, and it will be probably a variable point. And you might have used this. This is more like a questionnaire. You have used this during projects using a primary questionnaire. So you can have in a restaurant also. They will create one and give it to their customers. Probably during the time when they have to make the payment, and along with that payment slip, the envelope which comes the payment slip, they'll insert it in there, and they leave it open to you. It's left open to you if you really want to answer it or not. And if you feel like you can give your feedback, just place it back there. And online can be a Google form or it could be through your email. You can get a feedback form through your message. These delivery guys do that. Moment a parcel is delivered, you'll get an immediate message asking you to rate your experience with the delivery or rate your experience with that particular delivery service, whether it's e-cart service, different services, Blue Dart, e-cart, which is generally used by Flipkart, or you say a DHL or any other courier services. The idea is to be able to get a feedback from the customer through all channels, through all such channels which you can, or apps. Apps is another way where you ask to go onto the app, like say you have used Geo service, you're using Geo's recharge service, and you have used their recharging services. You have recharged either your cable TV, you recharged your, or you have paid your electricity bill payments, whatever you have done. Ultimately, sometimes they'll just pop up and ask you to provide a feedback. When you click on it, they'll take you directly to the app. And in the app store, you'll probably have to give a rating 1 to 5 stars and actually give leave a review comment. So it can also be through apps, provide feedback. All of this will go to a central customer feedback unit to ultimately be able to understand how is our service. It's all collated. It will be their part of a database, and they'll take actions based on the customer feedback. One of any of these tools, they'll use it and they'll try to get the feedback of the customer. Mystery shopping. Sometimes the way the word itself, mystery shopping, what people will do is that the people, as in the service organization, they'll utilize their own employees to become mystery shoppers. Could be from other units. Sometimes their own employees, or they might designate some other people just to go around shop. This is to determine whether your frontline staff, they display the desired behaviors. Generally used by banks, retailers, car rental firms, even the hotels are among the industries which actively use mystery shoppers. The idea is to understand whether you go as a customer. You are going from the organization's perspective, but you are not a real customer. You're just going there to find out whether the service personals are doing their job properly or not. So it's just mystery shop. They wouldn't know that they are being evaluated, and based on that, also they can get first-hand information of how they are performing. Unsolicited customer feedback, complaints are the most important channel of feedback for the service organization. If you do not have complaints, you do not know where you're going wrong. And the more complaints you get, the better for you to improvise upon something. Unless you don't know where you're going wrong, you wouldn't be able to know what makes a customer unhappy or what makes a customer extremely happy. You can get complaints on both sides. You can get complaint. I mean, I'm not saying you'll get a complaint about person being too happy, but you get a complaint as to what makes him happy. He's having a problem with something, and he will also tell as to if you do this, do this, then I'll be satisfied. So complaints and compliments are rich sources of detailed feedback on what just makes customers unhappy and what delights them. So customer feedback, suggestions, complaints, compliments, all of this can be used to understand the quality of the service that is being provided and to improve upon that, improve your service process and improve your service delivery. Focus group discussions and service reviews. Focus group discussion is something where key customer segments are collected or user groups, and you basically identify. I mean, if you are serving different segments, let's say you serve a segment of youth, you serve a segment of elderly people, you serve a segment of women. So you'll probably take some segment people, you'll get them down together, or you'll probably take up one in each segment and you'll try to collate them together and hold a discussion, a very focused. It will be monitored by there'll be a moderator, and you'll talk to them, understand their real needs, their real problems. So a key focus group of say 10 to 12 people. Numbers could vary, but I'm just talking about a very generic number which is used in focus group discussion to have a healthy discussion. More the number, the it would not lead to anything. 4 to 5, 10 to 12 is a very ideal number. And You understand all of that, understand their problems, you understand probably problems from each customer segment, or you get the entire segment together and understand their problems, and that will help you in improving your service quality. Service reviews, on the other hand, they are more in-depth one-on-one interview. They are usually conducted once a year with the firm's most valuable customers. Your most loyal customers, you will actually do a one-on-one review. So it's not like a focus group. A focus group is a group discussion. Service reviews is single discussion with some kind of users that you have or customers that you have identified. Online reviews and discussions. User generated content and data can increasingly provide rich insights. This is something which is happening these days in the online world. Into quality perceptions of a firm and its competitors and how these comparisons vary over time, increasingly granular attribute and temporal level. What that means is that uh, every site has a provision to provide online review. Just like we saw here, giving a provision for service feedback cards, online, mobile messages. It's similar to that. I mean, it's the same as far as the online part is concerned. You have blogs, discussion forums. You leave it open where people are talking about you. People are either complaining about you. People are talking good about you, bad about you. It doesn't matter. It could be through some very open discussion forum. It could be Quora, which is a very open discussion forum. It could be on any other open discussion forum, some tech forums or some news forums. Wherever it is, people are discussing, talking about you. It could be on Twitter, it could be on some of the social media channels, it could be on Facebook, or it could be on your own company pages where people are leaving a review. People are basically discussing. It could be some comments. All of that can be collated, and you can get to understand your service quality. Hard measures of service quality. So far, we have seen just the soft measure, and we have seen customer feedback. Or we learned basically everything about customer feedback. Look at hard measures of service quality. Hard measures service quality. We look at a case study of FedEx and something called service quality index. Now, FedEx, what they did initially, they looked at something called 100. They wanted 100% satisfaction. They looked at 100% service performance. They were wrong in saying we want 100% delivery. What happened before I talk about this? What happened is that FedEx, which basically ships millions of packages a day, even delivering 99.9% of packages on time would still lead to a lot of problems, which means 1 in 1000 packages delivered late. And when you are delivering millions of packages, if 1 in 1000 is actually not satisfied, 2 in 2000, 3 in 3000, you're talking about basically numbers are going to keep increasing. In shipping millions, even that 0.1001% means a lot of people are not having their packages delivered safely. You still have dissatisfied customers. So what they did, they came out of this entire concept of 100% because they started getting different complaints. They started getting complaints like wrong day delivery, right day, late delivery, pickup not made, lost package, customer misinformed, billing and paperwork mistake, employee performance failures, damaged packages. You realize there are a lot of problems happening. So they created something called a service quality index, also pronounced as SKY, which takes each of the 12 different events that occur every day. They created some 12 different events. These different events, which I'll show in the next slide, these events, and those 12 events, they take the number of each of these events and multiply them by a weight. They get a score for that particular item, and then they total it up, and based on that, the score, they understand what has been their service quality. So if you look at on the left side, there are each of these 12 items: late delivery, right day, wrong date, tracing request unanswered, complaints reopened, missing proofs of delivery, invoice readjustment, missed pickups, lost packages, damaged packages, aircraft delays, over goods, abandoned calls. Any of these could be issues that the customers might face. So what they did, entire list of problems that they face from a customer's viewpoint, and each event, the raw numbers for each event, how many times it's happening, are multiplied then by a weight. The weight multiplication is based on the seriousness of that event for the customer. So it's begin customer driven kind of weighing factor, a very effective way of measuring is looking at customers' way of seriousness of the problem. The weighing factor is into the number of incidents, you get the daily points, and then you total it up, you get a total score. So lower the score, the better is your service. The other hard measures of service quality, apart from service quality index, which FedEx developed, is something called control charts. Very simple. Control charts, the way you look at it, moment you see it, you're able to understand what is happening there. Is just measurement over performance measured over a period of time against some standard. Measuring performance over a period of time against some specific quality standard that you have defined. This can be used to monitor individual performance measures, or you can get it over an entire index. Let's look at one example. Let's, for the purpose, we look at the flight example which is shown here. This is a control chart for departure delay showing percentage of flights departing within 15 minutes of schedule. So how many flights have left within 15 minutes of schedule, right from each different month from Jan, Feb, March till December. So if you look at this particular control charts, okay, if you look at the month of October, has been a very good performance. You see, over 90% of the flights have actually departed within 15 minutes of schedule. But in the month of, somewhere around month of April, only around 75% of flights have left within 15 minutes of schedule. So this basically, looking at a trend, or looking at this, basically it gives you an understanding of performance measure, which is your measure is that flights have to leave within 15 minutes of schedule, and you have been able to look at it over a period of time. In the next video, we'll touch upon something called as different tools to address service quality problems. There are some more tools. These are only the soft and hard measures. I've looked at some different techniques or of tools for them, as in for only for soft and hard. But there are some very few practical tools which are also used. Further tools, we'll study them in the next video. Thank you so much.